Good morning. Today is the day of the loading of the TBC positive cases and also the one bull that we decided to remove in order to stop propagation. And I'm here at our paddock A6 to have a look whether this paddock can be grazed by the remaining herd. And some of you have been asking about the mustard. So if you look here, there are a few yellow specks, but it's only a few and they are small. So the mustard is still around, and some of it isn't probably bad, but you can definitely see that the area has changed from all over yellow to only a few. So here there is a bit more, and let's go inside. We try to avoid doing what I'm doing, but right now there is no gate that I can use, so let's say it's permitted in this case. The thing is, when you do this often, the wire will lose its tension, and then that's not good. So here are a few interesting things that I like to point out. Have a look at those longer leaves, like this one here. So this looks pretty nice, and if it were a lot more plants of this kind, then of course this area would have a lot of forage. But we're not there yet. There are a few very fine grasses and other things. The ground is mostly covered, but there are also a few spots like this one here that are pretty much empty, and that is part of the ongoing problem. And of course the lack of rainfall and the lower temperatures, it does not help. But now we are getting into spring, and you can see flowers coming up. They are too small to be eaten if we bring the bovines here. And the same goes for the clover that comes up here. It is still too small, most of it. They might actually reach this and have a bite with their teeth. But usually a cow uses the tongue to grab something, and then it will be bitten off and swallowed. So very, very short grasses is not something that is easy to eat for a cow. And that is why sheep can do a lot of damage if not managed properly. They have their place. But the thing is, with their very small mouth, they can definitely eat things much lower to the ground than cows easily can. So this is definitely not an area that is lush with forage, but you can see the plants that are there, they have grown long leaves. So for example, that one here, that qualifies. The issue is there are not enough of these. And you can see here there is a lot of small clover coming up. And let's have a look here. So here is some straw, and it decomposes, and a few green things are establishing themselves. And by the way, this way of bale grazing is not the best way. I wish round bales were available and we could unroll them. But I have asked around, and the message is always, transport of these round bales is way too costly. People don't want them because they use this material in a different way like we would like to do. And so it is basically not available. Because you can pack a lot more square bales on a truck than round ones. And yeah, it works in a different way. So they have a different way of doing things. They, I mean the other people here in this area. And yeah, that's a problem. So here, this is looking good, despite the fact that there is not a lot of green. This is also a place where we had straw and it has decomposed. But of course now the plants are lacking, but at least they can establish themselves. It's a question of seeding, and I'm getting the impression that here and there we can actually use a direct seeding machine. So a seed drill, because in this area here there are almost no stones. That used to be worse, and we have not picked them up. Of course there are a few stones like that one here, but it's not the same way as it is in our zone C. So that makes me hopeful that the idea of overseeding becomes more feasible. So for a quick pass we can probably bring them in here, because according to our statistics this would be the area that is up next. But of course statistics and reality are not the same thing. This is always the struggle, and I will show you in this video something that I've been working on for our application that allows us to keep track a little bit better of what is going on. And some of you had also been asking about the thistles. So you can see there have been a few, and probably there will be a few, but this area used to be full of thistles, and now there are only the few like this one here and those there, and most of them are gone. Their seeds are certainly in there, but they won't germinate because the conditions aren't right. So that's good. I have learned that thistles are part of nature's repair crew, because they open channels for water infiltration and things like that. So when they are not needed because the soil is improving, they won't grow. And you see, there is also a change happening. So these there, they are more numerous here, but of course it's a plant here and there. And then we have spots like that, which are a lot greener than the surroundings. In the video it's probably even more prominent. The poorness of this piece here can be seen with all the small stuff. And that small stuff does not grow. But on the other hand, you can see these here, for example, and they will go. And here is a little bit of manure that the birds have gone through. And also we don't have chickens at the moment. We do have a lot of birds, and they basically do the same job, but not in the concentrated fashion like a managed flock of chicken would do. So yeah, a quick pass is something that we can do. It's more for the impact, not to feed the animals, because there isn't that much. And then we have to leave this area alone, because now we are getting into spring. Spring starts around here at the end of March. So officially we are still in winter, but springy things begin to show up. So there is the mustard, but there are also other flowers. And well, I'm actually a bit unsure if these flowers might then lose. But I think we can risk it, because they're still very small, and if we don't allow them to be here for a long time, then it's probably not a big issue. So that should be it for the exploration here in this area. We'll see what else I can add to this video. I should go over there and have a look at A9 and show you that. That might be a very promising area. This is not yet A9, it is A8, and I'm showing you this because there is another indicator. So when we see the manure piles, then we definitely need to wait a little bit until they have disappeared. You see, this one here is basically intact, so the birds have not been here, and as far as I know, earthworms also help to make them disappear. And you can see how this looks like. This is almost bare ground. There are leaves on top of it, which is good, so things are improving, but there is still a lot of plants missing. And you can see the few grass plants here and there, and then there is a void. Of course it gets filled with something else, but it's not the same as having a lot of grasses. And there are some anthills, and I know that they are beneficial. Problem is, if they steal too much seed, then there will be no plants. So it's an issue, it's a two-sided sword. But something they will definitely do. And as always, you can see that below the trees the area is always a lot better. It's because of the tree has a symbiotic relationship with its surrounding, mycorrhizal fungi included, and therefore below the tree everything is a lot better. So there we have A9, and I will now jump the fence and have a closer look. So this is now A9. You can see that it looks yellowish. That is grasses that are yellow. So for pen down, you can see that in more detail here. So they don't like something, and I would assume it is related to the temperature. They have some stress. I don't see a bite mark. So if you look at this, this is a pointed leaf, and pointed leaf apparently means you can graze it, while if you see a bite mark, then that's a no, because it has not expressed itself. And by the way, have you guys heard of the name Voisin? Voisin used to be a French person, and he wrote a book about grazing. I think he was also a doctor. There is a Wikipedia page about him in the 1800s or so. He wrote about pasture and grazing, and in Latin America a lot of people do pastoreo racional de voisin. So it's a rotational grazing scheme, but they refer to this French doctor, I believe he was also a medical doctor, and they don't talk about holistic management or similar things that are much newer and probably inspired by all that, but instead they go back to voisin, and it's rational grazing. So you think about what you do, and that is what they do. But it's a rotation, so don't graze the same area too soon, and all the other things, move the animals around all the time. So that is quite interesting. So this area is in good shape, and even here in a wallow it looks good. There's a few mustards coming up, but I think this area is too developed already for a grazing session. So I think it is tactically smarter to not graze it at this time, but instead wait until it has grown a bit more. You can see that these grasses here have developed pretty long leaves. Of course they're a bit ruffled, but it's not bad. And our little dam that we built here seems to have created an edge. You can see that there the grasses look a little bit nicer. So we did not dig here. This is just what Angel distributed from digging elsewhere, and it's more or less on contour. And you see, this looks very nice. This area used to be good in 2018 when we started, and it is definitely one of the better areas. So look at that over there. So again around the tree. So there's definitely a lot of potential here, but we should not bring the animals just yet in this area. And here where we had a bale, there's also something going on, and you can see definitely, look at that, and this one here. So the leaves are long. I wish the whole area were full of these grass plants, but there are a few. Seems to be a bunch grass. And the straw came in here in summer, additional biomass, and to give them some feed. So it will take time to break down. Of course there's always that problem, you put such a bale there and then you basically have mulched the area. It will break down eventually and disappear, because we've been doing this for a while, and in many areas you don't see that anymore, but it takes a while. And while it breaks down, you have no grasses in that area. Now of course the chicken could do wonders, because they will scratch it and distribute it and make it smaller, and then it breaks down much quicker, I would think. So there's another reason for having chicken. And we will, now that we decided to remove the cattle, which is a multi-year process, we will definitely go more in the direction of chicken or poultry in general. So as you can see, this pond here is pretty much empty, but the ground gets covered, or the bottom gets covered with some grasses, and that is exactly what we want. This does not have to be filled all the time. And keep in mind that this used to be very sandy, so all this is extremely sandy, and going down is also sandy, so whatever water accumulates here will quickly disappear, but the more roots there are, then things will change. So that's a good thing. This seems to be organic, the way it looks, so maybe not. I think I pick it up if I manage to get in there. Here and there are some hazards, especially for younger animals. Yeah, so this is not really organic, and this is the rest of a bag. You can see what it is, and this could be a huge problem for a young calf, because they can swallow it and then they will die of fixation, because they can't breathe. So this is also good here on that berm. The plan is to plant vetiver around here when the time is right for doing that, and we have enough plants that we can use. And of course some trees are missing here. There are a lot of things, and we have to figure out the sequence and importance, but we are likely to get some help, so I can mention this now while I walk around here. There is an organization called Life Terra. It's an organization created by the European Union, and there are 2 representatives in Catalonia here in Spain, and what they do is they plant trees. So basically the European Union gives you trees and also some money to run a project for tree planting, and then you basically designate an area for that, so you make this available, and then you have an obligation to keep the trees alive, so you have to water them, and then that's it. So that way Europe is planting a big number of trees all over the place. There's actually another YouTube channel, a German couple in Portugal, they're called Monte Cruz, and they have been receiving trees from them, and they have planted 3,200 trees. So I've spoken to Life Terra, and they will visit us sometime during this year. Their planting season is either in spring, so now, or in autumn, so basically when there is moisture, when there's rain. So we are planning to do something together during the upcoming autumn. Of course, they are looking for trees that are native to the areas. So the palovnias will not be sponsored, but that is not an issue. We have the palovnias as a tool, and we want all the other ones. And I spoke to them about Miyawaki forests, and definitely they like this. It means more trees, but it's a good thing. So here, this is the place for the Miyawaki forest, A7. And it might be that Life Terra will help us with that, or with the trees up there. So we will see. But definitely that was a very fruitful conversation that I had. And the 2 ladies managing this will come here, and then we make a plan.